Hello, welcome back to the workshop. It's fantastic to have you here for part 4 of making the Damascus steel kukri. So right now on the kukri, the bevel, the rough bevel that I've ground in, doesn't go back very far at all. It only really goes back about this far. And in fact, you know, because it's not quite even, it goes back even less on the other side, right? So the first thing that I'm gonna do, I think, is I'm gonna go back to the grinder while I've still got a 2-inch wide 60 grit belt on it, on the 2-inch platen, and I'm going to grind the bevels. It seems like a reasonable thing to do. With this black here, I should be able to very clearly see the lines of my grind. So hopefully this works out well. It is the correct way to do this. So right now, I've got the bevels pretty freaking close. The edge is a relatively consistent 15 thousandths. I'm a little thick up here, a little thick here. Here it is a little thinner. I think if I switch right now to a nice sharp 120 grit belt, I should be able to get that consistency there. In terms of how the bevel is doing, right now, you know, it's a little wavy. There's an issue right here, which I can clean out by hitting it on the flats. Again, I think the 120 grit belt is the right course of action right now. Sadly, I only have 3-inch wide belts in the 120 grit, so what I'm gonna have to do is cut it down. Usually what I do whenever I want to cut down a belt is I just kind of nick there right along where the tape is and then just rip it. However, I think that might leave a little bit of a rough edge and I'm gonna try something new. Don't do this at home. Now that I've cut across the seam, I guess I'm just gonna try and really gently rip down it and get as even of a rip as possible. It's lining up pretty well. Oh, goodness. That came out perfectly. I really think actually scoring it here probably helped. I now have a perfect 1-inch belt, perfect 2-inch belt. I'm ready to finish this off. So here I am now after 120, still imperfections, a little bit wavy with the grind line, not perfect, about as good as I can comfortably feel I can get without spending another 3 hours on there. I've already spent a lot of time working on that bevel. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna move to 240, see if I can better refine these little imperfections in the radius of the actual grind line itself. I do apologize, guys, if I sound a little bunged up. I think I'm a little ill and my sinuses are all messed up, so it probably means I seem like I have a normal human energy level today, rather than what a lot of commenters have described as narcotic-induced energy. I assure you, narcotic-induced energy is never a thing here on the YouTube channel or ever in my life. It's just a great love of making things, a great love of living life, but right now I think I'm a little ill, so sorry for being a normal human. Is this the safest way to go about doing this? Probably not. I recommend you don't do this. Perfect. God, I like that technique. So I just went to an A65 Trizact belt, which I believe is roughly equivalent to a 400 grit. It's a finishing belt, and holy moly, that just made things way nicer. This is relatively consistent now. You know, obviously it's not perfect. I'm quite happy to accept that. What I'm now gonna do is I'm gonna come in here with an 120 grit on the flats, hit the flats, then go to a Trizact on the flats, and then polish the whole thing up to that A65 Trizact finish. And then we'll be ready for the etch. Sorry there, folks, we did a little time traveling. You see how I've actually taken off the scale finish here? I didn't do that on the belt. I actually used this. This is a Scotch-Brite wheel. It's like a rubber wheel with some abrasive particles suspended in it. Pretty neat. So, because I've already finished all of these surfaces to 120 grit, I'm just going to go ahead and go straight to that 240 grit belt I was using a little bit earlier. As much as I'd love you all to be under the pretense that I don't make mistakes and this stuff just happens super fast, the reality is it is just here a minute ago while that time lapse was going on. I was on the 240 grit belt and I just about finished grinding these flats, and you see there's a lip right here as it transitions to the bolster. Well, what happened is I pushed in too far, that lip then rises up on the side of the platen and it digs it in the other side of the platen right there, which was a big problem. Then I had to go back to 120 grit to fix that. I then went to the other side and I did the exact same thing to the other side. Big problem. So now I've gone back to 120 grit. I've just about fixed it. I'm gonna have to go back through the bevels again, go through the whole finishing procedure for that. Not a big deal, but I just like to illustrate the fact that a lot of this stuff is like 14 steps forward and 150 steps back. So, you know, I guess all I'm doing is trying to get as far forward without having to go as far back as possible. But hey, it's still fun, and I'm learning a lot too. By analyzing how that mistake happens, I now know, you know, okay, better to just draw it out that way than pull it in, and hopefully I can mitigate against having that kind of problem in the future. I dare say, I imagine you're wondering what the next step is. Well, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into the bolster with the small contact wheel, and I'm gonna clean that up on the Trizect belt. So right now I've finished using the small contact wheels and the Trizect belt. The transition between the bolster and the tang and the bolster and the blade is very nice and neat. However, by going in there with that wheel, you know, you do mess up that surface finish right here. So I'm gonna go and put the flat platen on, use the Trizect again, flatten this off. Again, it's like a 3 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of thing, you know, slow progress. But I'm gonna come back in here, flatten that off, then I'm gonna throw a 60 grit belt on the flat platen, flatten off the tang area, because when I put the G10 on there, I want it to be flat, but I also want there to be, I guess, a lot of surface area contact from a nice coarse grit belt to really help with the sticktivity. That's a real word, the sticktivity on the tang. I'm now going to be going into the etch. I'm going to be using ferric chloride as the etchant, and what this is going to do, this is going to etch away the 1080 steel, and the steel that has the 2% nickel, that's going to stay there. This means that I get a positive and a negative, and after the etch, I can then polish up the positive, and that's going to be the finished blade, and we can start working on the handle. Real quick before the etch, I'm going to take my degreasant. This is WD-40 branded degreasant. I don't want people to get confused when they see me use this stuff and they think I'm oiling it up before the etch. This is degreasant. Make sure there's no oil on it this way, because if there is oil, the acid won't take right there. So it's been in the acid for about an hour now. I then took it out and I put it in a solution of bicarbonate of soda and water to neutralize the acid. Now I'm gonna come from there, and I've got some little strips of 2000 grit sandpaper. I'm then gonna rub it on the whole thing and polish it all up. This is wet and dry, and I'm gonna be going back and forth to the sink and back, making sure to kind of clean off all the dirt that comes off when we start polishing it. So So I've now got the blade polished, I've got a coat of WD-40 on the whole thing. The next step is gonna be all about installing and finishing the scales. So, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm actually just gonna prep this surface here. Obviously I ground it with a 60 grit belt in the etch, you know, that gets hit with the acid. So I'm gonna hit it with a 60 grit piece of sandpaper on my granite block before moving on to shaping the G10 scales. Okay, so my surfaces are degreased. I have the pins already over there. I'm gonna go ahead and mix up some epoxy and stick it all together. I am so excited! What incredible fun it has been to forge this KUKRI. What a beautiful design of knife it is, the KUKRI design. And I'm just so thrilled to have attempted it. It's pushed the boundaries of what I know and what I can do, and I'm really, really excited by that. I can't wait to undertake the next project and take what I've learned here and apply it to this, to apply it to the next project. It's been massive, massive fun. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't seen the rest of the series, I'm gonna leave a square to part 1 of the series right there. If you're new to the channel, go check out some more of my videos. I make videos as close to every day as possible. It's a real hoot, and you can go ahead and hit subscribe if you click right there. Thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.